Welcome back to Sitting Courtside, guys. Episode 71. Of course, just like the first 70 episodes, it's your boy Jerry D.
It's like the first 70 episodes. It's your boy, Dante T.
And we're here to talk some ball, but instead of focusing on these major markets that, we give you this ESPN kind of vibe where you think we can only talk the Lakers, the Clippers.
What did LeBron eat for breakfast today, guys? Come on.
We're not hopping on that bandwagon today. We're going to talk about some smaller market teams that are thriving, that are actually prospering right now. And one of them just gets some major great news back with Paolo Banchero coming back.
He's back. He's back, baby. Back in Orlando. I'll be honest with you, Jerry. I was looking at the stats for this team, the Magic. Paolo's only played 7 games this year. That's crazy. I didn't realize it was such a small number, but
yeah.
They were holding down the fort while he was gone, to say the least.
And you just gave the fans a little preview into the notes here. They were 4th in the Eastern Conference when he went down with the oblique injury. He comes back and they're still in 4th.
Still 4th. Yep.
That goes to show the depth around this team. Obviously, Franz was off to a hot start. Possibly could have made his all-star bid as well if he didn't also tear his shit, which would happen to be his oblique as well. So,
yep.
But we'll stick to Paolo. First 2 games back, drops 34 points, 7 boards, 3 assists. Comes back in game number 2 against the Sixers, 20 points, 8 boards, 6 assists in his first 2 games back. So
he's good.
Rolling.
He's a good player.
We'll throw out a little nugget here too. He has the 3rd most 25-5 games before turning 23, only behind LeBron and Giannis. So
he would have had more of those games if he was healthy. You know that for sure.
Would have broke the record.
I was going to say he'd be close. He'd be close to it.
Paolo's a young star in the league. We already knew this, but just tell me what you've seen from him in these first 2 games back, and as well as what you've seen from the team since he's been gone.
I mean, I would say that he's a difference maker. He is a difference maker. I don't want to make it sound like he isn't, but it is astonishing that they were able to stay afloat while he was gone, and not even just him. They've had injuries. Wagner, like we mentioned, his was a little bit more recent than Paolo's. Just a few injuries, like smaller injuries here and there. Even his brother, Mo Wagner, he tore his ACL. I'm not laughing at the ACL. I'm just laughing at how unlucky they've been with injuries this year. The irony of it, right? It's like similar injuries. They're all similar injuries. So Paolo Banchero being back, I think it really just gives the Magic a lot of possibilities of what they can do this season. Because with him there, Franz not being there definitely hurts. But him being there, I think it's like, okay, now this is a team that I can see winning a playoff matchup. This is a team that I can see not only staying in that 4th spot, but hey, maybe competing for that number 3 in the Eastern Conference. You never know. Hey, if they went this long without Paolo and stayed competitive, if bring him back in, I don't think it's crazy to think that they can move higher up in the rankings. But I think it comes down to great coaching, great depth. It really is like a next man up type of mentality on that team. They're filled with a bunch of great young players that are willing to step up when need be, and that's what we saw during Paulo's absence. So I think this team is really well constructed. I think the sky's the limit now that Paulo's back. I don't know, is Franz Wagner out for the rest of the year? Is that
he will likely be back in March or April-ish is probably what the...
Okay. Yeah, it says that he hasn't been cleared for contact yet. The head coach said no contact at all, no conditioning pieces yet. So if he does come back, it will probably be later in the season, maybe right around before playoff time. But the Magic, they're a good team. I think they're a fun team to watch. With Paul back now, like I said, they're even better. So I'm curious to see where they move in the rankings now that Paolo's back.
Yeah, I think I could just echo all the same type of sentiments, of course, but I think the main thing that I noticed from Orlando, especially in his absence, I still been watching like the Orlando Magic brand of basketball. It's just it's fun, it's gritty. It seems like they just go out there.
They're developing and building a culture right now.
And to me, it kind of feels like OKC East a little bit, right? Where they have all these good young players that kind of make a lot of sense in a lot of different places on the floor. Like, no, they don't have an MVP candidate when like in SGA, like Paolo when he's healthy. No, he's not that kind of player. But in my opinion, Paolo's probably the second most dominant player in the NBA today, I think, right behind Giannis because it's a bruising style of basketball. So, yeah, when he's there and he's available, the Magic are a threat. I think they are. We'll get to this later, but I think they are a dark horse team out east where they can make a lot of noise and probably upset some teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers. Maybe they get a rematch. Maybe even the Boston Celtics, who they match up pretty well with.
Sure.
If they're healthy. So it's going to be interesting. But the rest of the guys is Cole Anthony, Anthony Black, Goga Bitadze. Like these aren't guys that are going to be pictured on ESPN's headlines or
they're not all-star players.
No, these
are very good role players.
You know what? They are all-star players in their actual roles.
In their roles on that team, absolutely.
That's what makes it fun to watch, especially if you're really just, I guess, degenerates like how we kind of are.
Just basketball fans. We're just a fan of good basketball.
I sit on League Pass and I watch the Magic and Wizards play and be like, wow.
Hey, if you're watching the Wizards play on League Pass, you got to really enjoy the team that they're going up against because that is borderline torture right there watching a Wizards game.
Hey, man, I'm sorry, Wizards. I didn't have to throw you out.
No, I'm not.
But this is just me headlining like, yo, the Magic have played big basketball when, despite their two biggest stars, their two biggest names being out of the lineup. So Orlando definitely has a case, like you mentioned, to cover some ground on that 3 seed, which is the New York Knicks. They're about 4 games back. They just have to string some wins together. And, hey, your star player came back, and I mentioned the first 2 games that he had. He dropped 34 in his return. So it's safe to say that, he's not rusty. I think he's ready to play. The rehab is good. Oblique is fine. He's back healthy, ready to lead his team. So I'm excited for what Orlando's going to look like. But the second follow-up question here that I kind of spoiled a little bit, do you think this is the biggest dark horse out in the Eastern Conference or even in the NBA? I think we kind of mentioned some last week, especially out west, and all the movers and shakers and how fluid the Western Conference is. The Lakers could suddenly pop off.
Right.
The Clippers might go on a run or something. But out east or in the NBA, if you want to answer that, is Orlando probably the scariest dark horse we got?
I definitely think Orlando in the Eastern Conference is one of the biggest sleepers. I'll be honest with you, I still feel like New York. I know they're the 3rd seed, but I still feel like New York hasn't been in that conversation with teams like Cleveland and Boston. And it took a little bit for New York to get things going, but I mean, they're only 2.5 games behind Boston for the 2 seed right now. They're 26 and 14. Everything's clicking for them, but like genuine sleepers, I think I'd classify the Magic over the Knicks, of course, because Paolo being out. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be. I mean, again, they stay competitive without their biggest stars. And, if the playoffs were starting, I wouldn't have faith in the Magic to get past a team in the playoffs as well with that roster. But with Paolo back, again, like I said earlier, I think the sky can be the limit. I don't think there's really would I put my money on them in a matchup against like Boston or Cleveland and New York? I don't know, but I do think that they would give those teams a run for their money, or at least make it very difficult for them. They made it to Game 7 last year against the Cavs, and I know that teams they're different. They're not too much different on paper, but like obviously they made a big jump this offseason. But they can compete. They can go, and when they're healthy, I don't see why they wouldn't give a team some fits in the playoffs. So. And why not, upset a team? If it's clicking, guys are playing well. Paul is playing his best basketball. He's only played 7 games this year, so he might be more freshened up than others when the playoffs come around. So I'd say that they are one of the biggest sleeper teams in the NBA, at least the biggest one in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I'd probably stamp them as the biggest one in the whole entire league. I mean, I think injuries always kind of make the sleeper because, this team – kind of sunk in the standings a little bit. Obviously, in the Magic's case, they stayed exactly where they were at, which is kind of crazy. But I think when it comes down to the postseason, we always look at the X's and O's, right? You always look at who's guarding who. And I think in terms of Paolo being 6'10", Franz being 6'10", and then having Goga Bitadze, you put that up against the Cavs, where they have the traditional 4-man being 6'11" and the 5 being 7 feet tall, and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. I think they match up well with them. You put them up against Boston, who does play a 5-out style kind of an offense, and it is going to be a lot harder to guard Kristaps Porzingis compared to Jared Allen. But you can still go somewhat small and put Paolo on Kristaps potentially. Sure. And still come away with some wins in the match.
They'll have to they would have to play around with those lineups like that against a team like Boston. But they have the people, they have the personnel to do that.
If you want a guy with more foot speed to get at the 5, put Wendell Carter in there. Like
Sure.
they have.
That's what I'm saying. They have depth. They have depth. They got pieces they can just plug in for certain matchups or whatever it may be.
And that's what makes them pretty appealing to me when I just look at the rest of the East. Where like you would put Cleveland, New York, and Boston ahead of those guys, sure, because that's literally who's above them in the standings. But we know if we see a playoff series, let's say they finish at the 3 seed and they play Milwaukee or something like that. Milwaukee will more than likely be favored going into that series.
Of course.
I can see that because of the name.
Because they have bigger name players, and of course, yeah.
I get that. And that's exactly why that Orlando fits the bill for a dark horse team that could go in and thump the Bucks or go in and thump New York if they end up
even with a high seed, they will be considered underdogs in any series that they go up in.
And I feel like, hey, healthy. Again, Paolo looks like he's shown no rust, and I love the point you made about him being more fresh than guys that have already played 30-plus games at this point in the season. He could just roll into wherever the hell they got to play, wherever the hell they match up, no matter where they fall, and he can just ball out. Like now, the matchup, if the playoffs started today, would be Indiana. I would take Orlando.
I would take Orlando over Indiana. Easy.
So, I feel pretty good about what Jamal Mosley's done. I feel good about how Paolo will probably look even more sharp.
Yeah.
Come April or come early May, if they're playing that long. It's Orlando Magic. I didn't think I'd spend the first 12 minutes talking about the Magic, but
here we are. They deserve it. They're looking good.
Shout out to Jamal Mosley, keeping those guys under reins to still maintain this 4 seed out east. I know it's a weaker conference, but it's hard to miss out on your 2 best players and still keep your head above water. So,
yeah, got to give them credit. They're building something special down there.
Have you played Pick 6 from DraftKings yet? What are you waiting for? You better get on it. The playoffs are here and time is running out. As the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, DraftKings does fantasy sports like no one else. You can play for better payouts on Pick 6. It's really easy to get started. Select 2 or more players, choose if they'll have more or less of a stat, and you're done. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. And DraftKings is making the deal even sweeter for first-timers. New Pick 6 customers play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Win more cash on Pick 6. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code SITTING. That's code SITTING for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.com. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. Now back to the show.
Yeah. Speaking about building something special, which we damn sure didn't see this season, I can guarantee. Another Eastern Conference team. I told you we're shedding love on some of these former bottom feeders of the conference who are now in the thick of things in the playoff hunt. And we're going to talk about the Detroit Pistons.
Detroit basketball, baby. Are you
Which,
kidding
by the way,
me?
guys,
Motor City.
Me and Dante had one hell of a bet last year.
Actually, I'm wearing a Detroit Red Wings sweatshirt. Can you believe that?
Different
what a coincidence.
The Red Wings aren't as irrelevant weren't as irrelevant as the Detroit Pistons. But we had a bet that the Pistons, I thought the Pistons would win 10-plus games last year. And Dante was on the other side of that.
And it's like they are not winning 10-plus games. I had no faith in them.
They cracked it later on. Dante never really lived up to his end of the bet. He was supposed to buy a Pistons shirt. Never did it. You can go check the tape if you don't believe me. But he never did it. Now they have 20 wins.
Yeah, now I wish I had that shirt. Now I should be repping. Like, look back and be like, I was the biggest fan. I've been a supporter since day one.
I've been here since the gutter. But clearly, they turned their organization around. They're having a lot more success. But, obviously, like we talked about before we jumped into this, they're healthy. Cade Cunningham is actually healthy. Yeah. He's playing well. Jalen Duren.
Biggest difference. Yeah.
Obviously, Jaden Ivey has been hurt since basically the new year. Has been out for the last couple weeks here. But
before then, he was averaging close to 18 points a game. He was having a career year. So even guys like him were stepping up. Malik Beasley, they got in the offseason 16 points a game, one of the best shooters in the league. So,
I think
got some.
I think that's the big thing here too, right? That's the difference. Getting these veteran players, Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway.
Yep.
Like these are guys that are kind of teaching them how to win. Like, no, they don't. They all haven't had like super deep playoffs runs. Tim Hardaway played in the finals last year a little bit. Tobias Harris, a couple of playoff appearances.
Hey man, I'm just saying that you see where Philly is right now without Tobias Harris, and now Tobias Harris in Detroit, and they've turned things around. So I'm just saying there might be an MVP candidate we're not talking about.
Those sirens in the background are coming.
They're coming for me. I mentioned Tobias Harris affecting team winning, and they're coming for me.
Absolutely.
Hey, but no, getting those veterans was a huge difference maker for this young team.
Yeah, it's huge, man. And I guess the question here is just not really a question, but just talk to me about Cade Cunningham and the 20-win Pistons as of January 13th.
Yeah. Hey, man, listen, 24 points, 9 assists, almost 10 assists, almost 7 rebounds a game. Shooting 38% from 3, 46% from the field, 80% from the free throw line. Cade Cunningham, when he's healthy, he's good. He was number 1 pick for a reason, Jerry. It's crazy what a healthy star, a difference it makes for a team. Obviously, the Pistons, over the last few years have been a poverty franchise. Not, Cade Cunningham, injuries and stuff, but just not having a good roster around him anyways. And now, we mentioned they got some veterans. They got some young guys like Jay Ivey to step up. Jalen Duran, who is a great player. I think his only issue is foul trouble. That's really his biggest thing is staying on the court.
When they come into the NBA, they all have the same issue most of the time.
Yeah, and believe me, as someone that has put money on Jalen Duran, doubles and stuff, I can't do it anymore because then I see him get like 3 fouls in the first 10 minutes of a game, and that kills me. But besides my gambling problems, listen, I think the Detroit Pistons, they have a nice core team here, right? Even with Jay Ivey getting hurt, they've won 6 games without him. And I think Cade Cunningham has like 7 triple-doubles this year, which is towards the top of the list for most in the league. It's, I look at this team and think, yeah, this is a team that can make a run. Absolutely not. But they're starting somewhere, and especially considering where they were at this point last year, what the jump that they've made in a year is impressive. So I'm hoping that they continue to ride this wave. I hope they continue to, they're only 1 game out of the 6th seed. So it's like they're in the play-in right now, but they're not too far from being in the actual playoffs. So, and only 2 games out of being the 4th seed. I think that says more about the East than the Pistons, but still, they're close. But yeah, hey, good for them. I'm happy to see that they're no longer a laughingstock in the NBA. And, good for Cade Cunningham too. Because I think, since he's been in the league, he hasn't really been able to prove himself as being a young star, whether, because of injuries, his team just not being good. But now he's finally getting a chance to show out. People are taking notice, and that's a great thing for Detroit and Cade Cunningham. So good for them, happy for them. But we'll see where this ends up for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Like Cade Cunningham is going to be an all-star this year. He should be.
He could be a starter,
and if he's not, the league is rigged. Like something is wrong.
If he's not, he is. He's arguably a top 3 guard in the Eastern Conference. So I
think he definitely is. Like you mentioned the assist number, he's 3rd in the NBA right now in assists, which goes to show. Like I think this is what point guards kind of need to look like coming into the NBA now. You got to be 6'5", 6'6", got to have a mean tight handle. You got to be a 3-level scorer. That's what turns you into a potential top 25 player. I don't know where Cade falls at on that list, but I'll probably call him top 25 as of this season right now. Like the dude is definitely one of the best guards in the Eastern Conference, like you mentioned. But the team, the development of everything is just, I didn't know what to expect. Firing Monty Williams after a year, I get they sucked. They probably failed whatever expectations they were supposed to meet last year.
Getting rid of Monty Williams was not the answer. I think me and you both agreed on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So seeing how they took this jump with JB Bickerstaff, though, that I didn't see it coming.
Sure.
I can say that admittedly. They doubled their win total already, which I call that a win. Like
absolutely.
Getting to 20 wins through 39-ish games or whatever we're at so far, like, hey, this is showing promising direction. Like, you guys are trending in the right way. Where they
Detroit basketball is promising again.
Which is weird. Like,
which is very weird.
Happy.
I'm happy.
That,
when Detroit is has a good team, I think that's good for basketball. Because Detroit's an older franchise. They have the history of the bad boy Pistons, of course, early 2000s with Chauncey, Ben, and all of them. And exactly. It's like, they haven't been relevant since they traded for Blake Griffin fucking 7 years ago. So
like this is good to see some franchise success. But even when they traded for Blake, the team wasn't even this deep, or they didn't have as many young.
They were like, let's get a star player. He'll keep us competitive, but we're not going to win anything.
No. So now that they actually have the bare bones for something right now, like they have the right building blocks. We mentioned Cade, we mentioned Jaden Ivey. How about a Sir Thompson? Another name that we could throw in. Ron Holland has played every game so far this season. They have pieces.
Isaiah Stewart they have, too. They have him there still. Durant, like we mentioned.
When you take young talent and some veterans and you mix them together, you get a solid team, and it actually helps for organizational stability. And I'm not sure who the GM out in Detroit is. I'm sorry, but you're doing a phenomenal job putting things together. And I think just for helping turn Detroit around in general, you have to be in the running for Executive of the Year. You have to be. I'm not even joking.
No, hey, listen, serious. that is a job that is you're set up for failure. So if you're able to do
think about historically too over these last few years, other than Cade being the number one pick, they've had the worst record, and somehow they
always get the fifth pick. They always get the fifth pick. It's brutal. Like Jaden Ivey, Holland, like you mentioned, they've gotten shat on.
Like, you know what?
Thompson, yep.
You guys deserve to be where you're at. And I'm glad
that hurts the most. Not even just sucking, but like sucking and then
you don't even get rewarded
slipping down. God bless you, Detroit fans. I would have offed myself years ago.
Goodness. We don't condone that.
Hey. But no, it is nice seeing Detroit's kind of, again, picking things up again, back to being relevant in the NBA. And they're only 2 games out of the 4 seed, which is incredible. So good for them. I'm rooting for them.
Crazy things could happen.
The NBA, I mean, we talked about the Magic, them being hurt and still being good. There's a lot of good teams. There's a lot of good talent in the NBA where even if star players go out, players step up. It's an any given night type of league. So it is nice seeing these teams like Detroit step up and be competitive again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Detroit is, I guess Wingstop is finally making their money off of those.
Hey, it took a few years, but hey, they're there now. They're there now.
Shout out to the Detroit Pistons. Shout out to the Orlando Magic for stopping generational trauma towards the organization. So shout out to these 2 former bottom feeder teams out east. You guys are in the middle of the pack now with potential to move up into the upper echelon maybe one of these years. So
shout out. The future's bright. The future's bright.
Before we close it out here, a future that is looking kind of bleak in terms of financial gain and benefit. For one, Luka Doncic. You see that segue there? That was pretty smooth.
I did. That was good. That was good.
But nah, Luka has been ruled out of any. Well, I've worded that terrible. Sorry, guys. But he's ineligible for NBA awards since he is not going to meet the 65-game requirement, which we had a video on this a long time ago whenever they made this a thing last season, where you had to play a certain amount of games to make all-NBA teams, all-defensive teams, all-star, whatever, all that good stuff, where Luka's going to pay the price. And obviously, these things have contract incentives. If you don't make an all-NBA first team or one at all, sometimes you miss out on $3 million or you missed the big extension window, like we saw with Ja Morant, who was out all last season or the season before because he was.
I think it wasn't. There was some other player too that missed out on was it Tyrese Halliburton maybe because he missed games. I don't know. I could be throwing any names out.
Either way, I know for sure Ja Morant missed out on 275 and had to settle for 220 instead. I mean, hey, $200 million.
Man, I can't believe he had to settle for 220.
Oh, man.
What a poor son of a bitch. Oh, man. No, but hey, I mean, $50 million difference is a $50 million difference, no matter what way you look at it. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, jump into this thing. I mean, it is unfortunate when you see star players miss as much time as someone like Luka, because you don't want to see star players get hurt. Luka Doncic is an MVP candidate every single year. If he was healthy, the MVP conversation could be different right now. He could be included in the conversation, but I think, I get what the NBA is doing with the 65 game things. You're trying to make players play, right? That's the biggest thing. So, we've seen a lot of load management, guys sitting, and it's like now you're not incentivizing them, but basically threaten to take away their incentives by if you miss games, whatever. But then it's like you get instances where guys get hurt, and it's like they're not purposely sitting, right? And it's like, and then money gets involved and all these things. And it's like, that's where, I put myself in their shoes, where it's like, man, John Morant's still making $220 million. I still envy him there. But like, if I'm in his shoes and it's like I'm out with an injury that I have obviously out of my control, I get punished for that. Now, if John Morant's like purposely sitting games and stuff, 1,000,000% take it away from him. But like, that's where I feel for the players, and I feel like I have some sort of sympathy there. I don't know. I feel like they need to tweak it a little bit, where it's like maybe requirements for like, because I feel like the All NBA teams is I feel like where most like incentivized money can be made from. I mean, I could be wrong, but that is usually a big one. Like Tatum, I think had to make like 3 All NBA teams to like get to a certain max contract thing. Besides the point, I think there needs to be like, 65 game requirement to be in the reward race, or a 40 game requirement to be in the All NBA race. Like, I think they need to divvy it up a little bit so it doesn't all apply. The 65 games doesn't apply to everything. That's just my opinion. I don't know, the little details and stuff, how they fix that. It can be a little complicated and stuff. Again, we're dealing with money here, and it is a big business, and the NBA wants to, they want to save as much money as they can if they can. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm curious what you think, if there is a way to change this or, reformat this, but it does suck that someone like Luka, does miss out on big paydays and stuff because of something that isn't necessarily in his control.
Yeah, I just had to pull up some of Luka's like accolades here, because I was like, yo, I'm pretty sure every single season, maybe but his rookie year, he's made the All NBA first team. And I wasn't tripping.
Sure. Yeah.
Outside his rookie year,
I believe it. Mm-hmm.
Since 2020 to 2024, he's made the All NBA team 5 times. First team.
Right.
All NBA first team 5 times. And he's
he's not going to make it this year, but like if you look at his stats at the end of the year, like he'll
deserve
definitely, 100%.
So like that's the piece that kind of bothers me. Like, we don't know how many games he's going to end up playing this year, but I do think that instead of 65 games, you want guys to play, what is it? Half of 82 is 41. You want guys to play 15 or 14 more games. No, I'm doing that wrong. 24 more.
Yeah, 24 more games. Hey, listen, I'm not a mathematician. I wasn't going to correct you. I was just going to go with it.
But either way, you want them to play 24 more games in half to have that 65 game requirement. You know what?
Right.
For the sake of product, for the sake of marketing for your players, jersey sales, all this merch that they make off their guys, especially the top tier players, I get why you'd want them to play 65 or more games. And why you want them to play 70 plus if they can, if they're able. But obviously, the injury aspect of things is something that you can't plan for. You don't expect Joel Embiid, for instance, to still be out missing games at this point in the season.
2 straight years of not being eligible for anything. But it's like Embiid, then we look at Embiid like at his career. It's like, oh, like All NBA first team. It's like, oh, these 2 years, what happened here? But it's like last year he was averaging 35 before he got hurt. But it's like we can't reward him for that, and it's like kind of gets lost in the history books in a way.
And that's why I feel like the requirement shouldn't be 65, because again, that's a 24 game gap between like 50% of the season was played by you, and now you played 75% of the games or whatever the number is. Not sure, but either way, I think we should move that requirement down. Like 65 games is a little steep because you guys play 82 of them.
Yeah, that's a lot of games.
They can only miss 15 games.
It's just such a big toll on your body. And like, then we can get into the argument of like, maybe they should lessen the season total and stuff, which I'm against because it's always been 82 games. And I'm big, like, I don't want to change the history of it because then things like stats get different. If you bring it down to 72 games, there are certain records that can't be broken ever again.
Absolutely.
I don't like touching that.
You don't touch that. What you do, they should be able to take down the 65 game requirement to, let's say, 50 or let's say 55. Sure. Like,
I think 50 to 55, more than half, but you don't, like, 65 is a lot.
You want me to play 24 more games and have the season? Like,
right. Yeah.
I don't think that's fair.
I think it hurt. I don't know. I think it also kind of hurts. Not the product, but just like, I don't know. I think it can be just a negative look when you see these big name players missing out on these things. I don't know.
And I'm not one to be in a man's pockets, but I do know that if you give me $50 and Dante gets $100, damn, Dante got $50 more than me. Now, when you add a couple more zeros behind that, like, I'd missed out on $50 million if I'm John Morant.
I'm a lot more upset. Yeah.
Like, I get it. It's a battle of attrition at the end of the day, but this is sports. Like, people get hurt in the NFL at practice doing a 3-step drop.
Yeah.
And so playing basketball where we play both sides of the ball and I'm running up and down the floor constantly.
Always moving constantly. Yeah.
I'm running, I'm jumping. Like, dude, you know what? Anybody that happens to play 65 games or more, shout out to y'all. Kawhi Leonard did it last year, and I don't even know how.
I think Zion did it last year too.
Yeah. Shout out to those guys, man. Like, 2 injury-prone players that we've labeled them so far throughout their careers, and hey, they managed to hit that 65 game requirement. But a guy like Luka,
2 years in a row, but they did it.
A guy like Luka, again, looking at the All-NBA first-team stats, he's also finished top 10 in MVP voting every single year but his rookie season.
Yeah.
So, like, know he's productive. He's one of the top 5 players when he's healthy. But now we're going to punish him. He's not going to be allowed to win anything, like, because you missed.
And it's like we'll look back and be like, oh, like, what happened this year? Did he just have an off year? It's like, no. We look at his stats. He definitely could have been in these conversations, but he just missed 1 too many games. He played 64 games of the season. Because of that, we can't. That's going to happen one day where a player's going to have a big name player is going to play 64 games, and it is going to be an outrage when that happens. People already get upset about players missing time and whatever, but
you know what?
When that happens, it is going to be woo.
I also just thought about that this 65 game rule requirement had to go through the owners and they had to stamp their approval on it because this protects their investments.
Oh, for sure.
Like
100%. Yeah, I mean, the owners are the ones that have to pay out those big extensions and those big contracts.
So, like, you guys, y'all not playing 65 games. I get to keep my $50 million.
Could you imagine if, like, fucking knock on wood, but like SGA gets to game 64 and then gets an injury out for the rest of the regular season? Well, like that's bullshit. And that would be NBA would go scorched, or fans would go scorched earth on the NBA. Like, that would just be insane.
You know what? If that was the case, I know he'd be hurt, but I'd play him the first at the tip.
Oh, put him tip off.
Intentional foul?
Get him out. Get him right out of the game. He could be in a walking boot, and I'm getting him out there. 1,000%.
If that's the font, like you see it in the NFL, right? Where this tight
guys
end
getting their incentives
2 catches. They do 2 catches. I am gonna have a tight end screen. That's not even a real play.
Mike Evans needed a few yards for 1,000. They fucking were getting any chance they could to get him. Yeah. I mean, that's like a team would have to do something like that. They, would be forced to do something like that. But I don't know. It is still a fairly new thing. So, they can still change it. They can always, redo it. But I don't know. I think there needs to be an instance of what I just mentioned for them to actually go and do something about it.
There's going to be a year that, I don't wish it, knock on wood. I'm not wishing this upon the NBA, but all your major stars might be injured.
There's going to be a year where the NBA first team is going to look very weird, and people are going to be like, what the fuck happened this year?
Why is Jonas Valanciunas on the All-NBA second team?
1,000%. 1,000%. Well, how did CJ McCollum make the All-NBA first team this year? Yeah, that could happen. So, again, I don't know when, if they'll change it. I hope they do, because the 65 rule requirement is there's some things wrong with it. There are some holes in it for sure.
Absolutely. But, shout out to the guy that's going to take Luka's spot, because now a guard spot on the NBA first team is open. So maybe that's Trae Young. Maybe it's Cade Cunningham.
Maybe it's Cade.
Who knows?
We'll
There's a
see.
spot open. But that is all we got today. You have any parting shots for us or anything?
Oh man, do I have any parting shots? No, not really. I hope everyone is doing good out there. Hopefully everyone is having a good Friday when this comes out. Hope we have a good upcoming weekend. And yeah, I just hope the best for everyone. That's all I got to say.
That's a great point. I got two quick ones for you. One, hope everybody that's watching this from California is also doing a lot better after the wildfires that are going on. So
absolutely,
for you guys, found some safety. And speaking of a California, star here, just Juju Watkins has been hooping, man, and like it's been fun to watch women's basketball, college basketball at that. Unpopular opinion, maybe not so much. I do think she's going to be better than Caitlin Clark, potentially, at least as a scorer and defender. She is magnificent.
Hey, women's basketball is in good hands.
About to be
moving forward, that's for damn sure.
Got to be on top, man. It's going to be great, but that is all we got. Let me try to do this Dante thing real quick here.
Let's do it. Floor is yours.
Thank you guys for watching here on YouTube, but, check out our gamified shorts that we have. It's in the shorts column. You can check us out on Instagram, TikTok, sometimes even Twitter if we get bored. I don't know. But it'll be fun for you guys to watch. Give us a 5-star rating. Subscribe if you're on Spotify or a listener or whatever, 5-star rating. Yada, yada, yada. Love. I didn't do too good.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Woo!
All right. Until episode 72.
Peace out, guys.
Peace.